Good morning. My name is Joe Trusman. I just want to thank UN Watch for having me here today. Today I'm about to speak about militant groups in Gaza and how they relate to the March of Return. I've been following and researching militant groups in Gaza since the 2014 Gaza war. This all began as a hobby for me, which turned into a full-time job. I used open source material to gather data, and over time, I learned how militant factions operated in Gaza and learned about their presence on social media. When the March of Return started, I noticed gaps between what was happening on the ground at the border and what was shown in the media. Specifically, Palestinian border units were active in infiltrations through the security fence, launching of incendiary kites and explosive-laden balloons into Israel. This is when I started to publish my research and analysis about militants. Another part of my work is a newsletter called Ground Brief. My newsletter covers events happening on the ground in the Middle East in the format of pictures, videos, and analysis. I gathered evidence of Palestinian border units who were active at the border. These units were primarily responsible for infiltrations through the security fence, launching of incendiary balloons, and explosive-laden balloons. Here are a few examples of the various border units and their activities. The first border unit, Sons of Zawadi, which is named after the Hamas drone engineer Mohammed Zawadi, who was assassinated in 2016. Here we'll see members of the Sons of Zawadi launch balloons laden with explosives. The second border unit is also Sons of Zawadi, but they're from Khan Yunis. In this video, we get a close-up of an RPG warhead with a fuse tied to a balloon. And the last border unit is called Kaushuk, which translates into tire unit. Here we'll see a large IED explosion near the security fence at the Gaza border. My Ground Brief newsletter. Another part of my work is the Ground Brief. My newsletter covers events happening on the ground in the Middle East with the forms of pictures, GIFs, and analysis. A highlight of the newsletter is an Associated Press report in December of 2018 titled, "In Gaza Protests, IDF Troops Aim for the Legs." This report highlighted several Palestinians who were shot by IDF soldiers during the March of Return. I cross-referenced the names of the Palestinians who were shot and covered information missing from the AP report. In one example, a Palestinian named Mohammed al-Isawi was an active member of a Palestinian border unit and had suspected ties to militant groups in Gaza. In the video I'm about to show you, near the security fence, a border unit member ignites an explosive and throws it at the security fence. At the very end, we'll see Mohammed's face. Regarding the UN Committee of Inquiry report, I used a similar methodology as I did with the AP report. Using open source material, I cross-referenced the names of Palestinians mentioned in the report to see if there were any errors or inconsistencies. Here are my findings. Subject 1, Mahmoud Saber Abu Taima. The report notes Taima was killed at approximately 150 meters from the fence, but the report doesn't mention he was a Hamas fighter, specifically from Al-Qassam brigades. I was able to find him with a search of the Al-Qassam website. As you see in the pictures, he's there at the bottom. Subject number 2, Abed Hawajri. The report notes Hawajri was shot in the abdomen 150 meters from the fence. What they didn't mention was Hawajri's affiliation with the DFLP, the Democratic Front for the Liberation of Palestine. He was also a field commander in the military wing, and he was one of the founders of the DFLP in the Nuzirat refugee camp in Gaza. Here's a video of Hawajri's funeral as he is surrounded by armed DFLP militants. Subject 3, Jihad Abu Jammus. The COI stated Jammus was shot in the head approximately 300 meters from the security fence. Like previous militants, there was no mention of Jammus being a militant in the Al-Aqsa Martyrs Brigades. He was also a field commander of the Al-Amudi Brigade, a branch of the Al-Aqsa Martyrs Brigades. Another part of the COI report I looked into were children. Subject 4, Ahmed Sha'ar. Ahmed Sha'ar was noted in the report as a child killed by the IDF on May 14th. A fact the COI missed was Sha'ar's role as a fighter in Saraya al-Quds, the military wing of Palestinian Islamic Jihad. A search of the Palestinian Islamic Jihad website revealed Sha'ar's role as a fighter. Subject 5, Saeed al-Khair. The COI notes al-Khair as a child killed at the security fence. As I did with previous militants, I cross-referenced his name and found al-Khair's affiliation with Al-Qassam brigades, and that he received military training at an Al-Qassam youth camp in Gaza. I was also able to find a martyr ceremony for al-Khair, and the person you'll see speaking at the podium is a senior Hamas official, Fatih Hamad. Armed Palestinians at the March of Return demonstrations. The COI report could not find evidence of armed Palestinians at the March of Return demonstrations. I researched this and I covered this to be false. The video I'm about to show you was taken after an IDF drone was shot down by small arms fire at the March of Return. You'll see armed men showing their weapons, and after a few moments, they'll run in the opposite direction after one of the tear gas canisters inside the drone starts to deploy. There are more militants, a lot more. I have not mentioned in my findings. All these militants that you see here are from the Al-Qassam brigades. All of them were killed at the March of Return. All of these militants are also killed at the March of Return, but are affiliated with other militant groups in Gaza. And these militants are active today at the Gaza border within the Palestinian border units. Militants are involved in demonstrations, riots, infiltrations, and other acts of violence at the security fence. At least 5 militants killed at the March of Return are mentioned in the COI report without referencing their militant background. Some children in the COI report were members of militant groups. Contrary to the COI report, Palestinians present during the March of Return demonstrations, rioting, were armed. militant activity is still present with the Palestinian border units. I hope my presentation has shed some light on militant activity regarding the March of Return and regarding information missing from the COI report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Truzman. Just one question about your presentation.
Yeah.
You said that all of the material that you found is open source material. So I'm just wondering how difficult it is to locate this type of material, and where do you go to find your sources?
Yes, it can be actually quite difficult. It is out there, but for instance, Facebook groups within Palestinians in Gaza, they have their own Facebook groups, and so they share amongst themselves. They share video, they share what's happening, so that's a form, that's a way to get information. But it's not easy to join in because they're very wary of outsiders.
But it's all publicly available on the internet.
Correct.
Okay.